Tony Stewart, Smoke, the AJ Ford of his time. Everyone knows who he is, whether you love him or hate him. He's not only a legendary American class driver, but he's a busy man off track, whether it's owning a NASCAR team, an NHRA team, sprint car team, owning Eldora Speedway, being a co-founder of the SportsCar racing experience, and being a champion there last year. Tony Stewart has done a lot as a race car driver and a businessman in the world of American auto racing. In this episode of Racing Stories, I will once again be talking about a driver's IndyCar career. Tony Stewart is no exception. He did IndyCar in the mid to late 90s, and in episode 29 of Racing Stories, that's going to be the case. This is Tony Stewart's IndyCar career. Anthony Wayne Stewart was born on May 20th, 1971 from Columbus, Indiana. His early days of racing started in 1971 when he was 7 or 8 years old. He started doing go-kart racing in West Point, Indiana. 1 year later, in 1980, Tony Stewart won his first championship. He was so successful early on in his racing career, Tony competed in the World Karting Association. Tony would win a 1987 World Karting Association championship. After a successful karting career, Tony Stewart would move up to midget racing. Stewart did the United Midget Racing Association and raced in 3 quarter midgets until 1991. While he was in the UMRA series, Tony Stewart moved up to the USAC series at the same year thanks to one of his karting sponsors and his friend, Mark Dismore. Tony would win the 1991 USAC Rookie of the Year. A couple years later, Tony Stewart won the 1994 and 1995 USAC National Midget Series Championship. After 1995, Tony Stewart moved up to IndyCar in 1996. If you were an IndyCar fan back in 1996, chances are it was a horrible time to be a fan of the sport. In 1996, the infamous split between CART and the Indy Racing League took place thanks to Tony George. CART had the best of the best drivers in the world racing on ovals and circuits. Yeah, the best of the best, they say. The IRL was a lot cheaper, raced on ovals only, and it gave drivers from sprint cars and other open-wheel racing series a chance to race in the IndyCar series and a chance to race in the Indianapolis 500. Tony Stewart was one of those drivers. Tony raced for Team Menard, owned by John Menard, and his sponsor was Quaker State and Glidden for Disney, and Menard would also join Tony alongside with Quaker State and Glidden. The very first Indy Racing League race was held on January 27, 1996, the Indy 200 at Walt Disney World Speedway. Tony Stewart would start in 7th place. He led 37 laps. He did look unbeatable and was about to be the first driver to win in the IRL at Disney. However, a hard-charging Buzz Calkins stole the lead, just like Woody thought Buzz Lightyear was going to steal Andy away from him. Tony was instructed to save fuel while Calkins continued to run away with it. Tony Stewart barely avoided disaster after avoiding a crash that involved Scott Sharp and Tony's teammate, Eddie Cheever Jr. During the final restart of the race, Tony Stewart tried to catch Buzz Calkins, but Calkins had enough magic to win the Indy 200 at Disney, while Tony Stewart comes home in 2nd place. The next race will be at Phoenix. Tony Stewart would start in P4. While Tony Stewart was chasing Arie Luyendyk, Tony Stewart's teammate Scott Brayton crashed in turn 4. Under yellow, Tony Stewart would stall on pit road and had a hard time exiting pit road. After all those issues, Tony Stewart was back on track, gaining back positions he lost. He was back on track until he had issues again. His right front tire was down. After that, he tried to regain positions once again and momentum yet again. Unfortunately, more issues took place yet again. On lap 165, Tony Stewart would finish the race behind the wall due to electrical issues. Tony Stewart would finish 11th. After the first 2 races of the 1996 season, Tony Stewart's dream is finally coming true. The 1996 Indianapolis was next in the final race of the 1996 IRL season. The 1996 Indianapolis 500 would be a weird month of May because of the split. The IRL were racing at Indianapolis while CART was at Michigan for the inaugural US 500, competing with the Indy 500. And we know how that went. Okay, I'll stop with the 1996 US 500 slander. That is not what the episode is about. Anyway, back to the topic. Opening day at Indy was May 4th. Rookie orientation was supposed to start that day, but it was washed out and postponed to the next day due to rain. On May 5th, rookie orientation finally took place. A cool morning saw only half an hour of practice with 9 cars until rain closed the track for the day at 9:35 in the morning. Tony Stewart was fastest of the abbreviated session with the unrepresentative 193.957 miles per hour. On May 6, Tony Stewart was fastest rookie of the rookie orientation with a speed of 237.336 miles per hour. He was also the only rookie that was in the 230s on the orientation. On May 7th, for first practice, Tony Stewart was fastest with a speed of 236.121 miles per hour. Team Menard swept that day with Ed Cheever Jr. in second with a speed of 235.997 miles per hour, and Scott Bain in third with a speed of 235.730 miles per hour. On May 8th, there was no practice due to rain. All activities were canceled. On May 9th, Arie Luyendyk was the fastest driver in practice with a speed of 237.774 miles per hour, while Tony Stewart was second with a speed of 237.029 miles per hour. The next day was Fast Friday, the last practice before qualifying. On May 10th, Arie Luyendyk was once again the fastest driver in practice with a blistering of 239.26 miles per hour, so close to the 240 mark. While Tony Stewart was once again second with a speed of 236.004 miles per hour. Saturday, May 11th, 1996, day 1 of qualifying. It was a record-breaking day to see these drivers go way over 230 plus miles per hour. Before there was qualifying, there was practice for qualifying. Tony Stewart ran the fastest practice lap of the morning at 235.719 miles per hour. Pole day. Time trials began at 2 p.m. Lynn St. James was the first car to qualify, completing her 4-lap run at 224.594 miles per hour. Buddy Lazier then grabbed the provisional pole at 231.468 miles per hour. 23 minutes later, Davey Jones broke the 1 and 4-lap track records, completing a run at 232.882 miles per hour. The speed broke Robert Guerrero's 1992 track record. Honestly, that was the only reason why I put that on the script. Tony Stewart bumped Davey Jones off the pole with another new track record at 233.100 miles per hour, becoming the first rookie to hold both the 1 and 4 track records since Theo Fabi in 1983. At 6 p.m., the gun was shot. Day 1 of qualifying was done. Scott Braden officially accepted his second straight Indy 500 pole position award. Arie Luyendyk and Tony Stewart were now sharing the front row. However, at 7:45, it was announced that Arie Luyendyk failed post-qualifying inspection due to the car being 7 pounds underweight. That meant Tony Stewart would be in second. The next day, Arie Luyendyk would run a record-breaking 236.986 miles per hour. To this day, the record still stands. On May 13th, Tony Stewart was fastest in practice with a speed of 235.837 miles per hour. On May 14th, Arie Luyendyk was fastest with a speed of 238.493 miles per hour, while Tony Stewart was in second with a speed of 234.821 miles per hour. On May 15th, Wednesday's activities were canceled due to rain. I can't confirm if Tony Stewart did practice the next day on day 16th. All I know is that there was 22 cars practiced that day. Unfortunately, on May 17th, 1996, tragedy struck.
Bettenhausen, Bryan, and George Amick battled for the lead over the...
We take you immediately to Indianapolis Motor Speedway for an update on the condition of the pole sitter Scott Brayton, who suffered a bad accident about 4 hours ago.
And at this time, we will not be taking further questions. May 17th, 1996, 4 p.m. Race car driver Scott Brayton, 37, of Coldwater, Michigan, died at 12:50 p.m. local time today at Methodist Hospital of Indiana. Brayton's death was due to injuries sustained in an accident which occurred at 12:17 p.m. today at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway during practice for this year's Indianapolis 500. The Speedway delayed the announcement of Scott's death until family members could be notified. Brayton, who had qualified on the pole for his 15th Indianapolis 500, is survived by his wife Becky, daughter Carly, 2.5, and his parents Lee and Jean. That is all the information we have at this time. Further information and comments from the Speedway the United States Auto Club, and Scott's Team Menard Racing Team are expected later today. And I wanted to just make the one comment that we appreciate your patience throughout the afternoon. Scott's mother, Jean, arrived at the hospital just a few minutes ago. We'll keep you posted as further developments and information is available.
Tony Stewart's Team Menard's teammate Scott Brayton died from a basilar skull fracture after suffering a flat right rear tire and crashing in turn 2 hard. From what I heard, Scott Brayton was in Tony Stewart's backup car at the time of the accident. After the incident, Danny Guys would be the driver replacing Scott Brayton, but he would have to start the back due to driver change. Therefore, Tony Stewart would lead the field down to the green. The last ever practice took place on May 23, 1996. It was carb day. Tony Stewart won the last practice before the big race. It looks like Tony Stewart is a pre-race favorite coming into the big race alongside with Arie Luyendyk. We know both of them are two of the fastest drivers throughout the month of May. After the rookie tests, practice, and qualifying runs, and a loss of a teammate, it was race day. Although it was going to be a weird 500 due to the split, the 1996 Indianapolis 500 was here. According to a sportscasting article, Tony Stewart said that he was so nervous for his first 500 that he almost threw up before the race. He also said, quote, "The nerves were a level that I had never seen before in my entire life, in any form of motorsport leading up to my first Indy 500, but knowing the history and knowing the pageantry of race day and everything leading up to it, it was extremely hard to stay composed," end quote. Tony Stewart led the field down to the green. He was dominating the race early by leading the first 31 laps of the race. It was a rookie record. Then pit stops took place. 11 laps later, Tony Stewart took back the lead. He led 13 more laps. Later on in the race, Tony Stewart was having some issues with his car. Tony's engine was developing boost pressure problems. He still went after Buddy Lazier when the race went back underway. Unfortunately, on lap 81, Tony Stewart's engine blew up. Tony would DNF and would finish in 24th. He blamed the engine issues on the unpopular pop-up valves delivered by USAC. He described it as junk and garbage. Despite DNFing almost halfway, Tony Stewart would win the 1996 Indianapolis 500 Rookie of the Year. After a 3-race season, Tony Stewart would finish 8th in points. In 1996 through 1997, things would get better for Smoke in the IRL. The 1997 Indy Racing League had 10 races, 7 more than the previous year. And why was the season called the 1996/1997 season? Well, the 96 and 97 season was originally scheduled to begin at New Hampshire in August of 1996 and end with the Indianapolis 500 in May of 1997. At some point in the summer of 1996, the conscience regarding the unusual split calendar schedule was deciding unfavorably. Omitting the normal winter off-season caused potential difficulty with driver contracts, sponsor contracts, and equipment purchasing, which all traditionally followed a calendar-based schedule. In addition, the months of November, December, and most of January were not expected to be filled in race dates, since few suitable venues outside of Orlando were available in warm weather locations. It was felt the long winter gap between races was disrupted and disjointed and came at a time of year when auto racing was traditionally on a hiatus anyway. Also, Buzz Calkins and Scott Sharp were the only times in IndyCar history to have 2 drivers winning the championship. As for Tony Stewart, he was looking forward to being a contender to win races and a championship. The season started out that way at Loudon. Tony Stewart started in 7th place. He was actually dominant in that race. He first led the race on lap 14 after passing Arie Luyendyk. He led 24 laps. 5 laps later, Tony would take the lead back on lap 42. 26 laps later, something went wrong and another competitor.
He's actually, as you can see right there, getting him in the turn. Getting all the cars in the turn.
Don't let him pass you. Don't let him pass you.
Now that was Ronnie Dawes telling Buddy Lazier, don't let him pass.
Go as far as
Whoa! They get together. Lazier gets the wall, and he gets it hard as he touches with Tony Stewart.
You okay, buddy? Are you okay? Hey, I got lucky on this one. The son of a bitch just ran right into the back of me. He wasn't a lock side of me or anything. What was that? I'm a little bit dizzy in the head, but my back is okay. My feet are moving, everything's okay. Okay, very good. What did he do? Come up on you? Well, if I had the corner, he wasn't anywhere near me. He must have just fucking hit me in the back. Was that Stewart?
That, by the way, is not normal for Buddy. He's a very polite young man. But obviously, when you get ricocheted off a wall like that, it certainly brings up the adrenaline and the anger.
While leading the race on lap 68, Tony Stewart dived into the inside of Buddy Lazier in turn 3 and both drivers touched. The slight contact sending Buddy Lazier into the wall. Buddy Lazier, who was still partially competing with a back injury he had suffered back in Phoenix, was injured, but he was upset at Tony Stewart's maneuvers, being heard using profanities on ABC's broadcast, for which he later apologized. Despite the contact, Tony only suffered cosmetical damage on his front wing. After the incident he had with Buddy Lazier, Tony Stewart would still hang on to the lead. Tony had the race in the bag, but Tony suffered electrical issues in lap 182. Tony Stewart was 18 laps shy of getting his first ever IRL win, but he would have to settle for 12th place. Race 2, Las Vegas Motor Speedway. It was the very first time that the sport raced at the newly built but unfinished racetrack. Tony Stewart would start second. However, and surprisingly, he did not lead any laps. Unfortunately, on lap 78, Tony Stewart crashed out.
Well, not only massive G's, but consider that visibility. You're looking through a driver's lens right now off a Simpson helmet. See how clear it is at the start of the race?
Another car into the wall. It looks to be Stewart.
Boy, that's the color scheme from
Tony Stewart.
Tony Stewart. Whoa.
So there is part of John Menard's hope going away. Now he has Mark Dismore, who is going to move up to third place as a result of this, the second place car getting in contact with the wall. Let's take a look at how this occurred. We're looking from the onboard camera and see if we can figure anything out at all, Danny and Bobby.
Okay, he's going into turn 1 there, Bobby.
There's nobody supposed to be in front of him.
He lifted off just a little bit. He just lost it.
Something could have broken on that car, Danny. That was an awful fast spin. I mean, he didn't just do a real slow lose on that one, I promise.
No, that thing jumped around on him real fast.
He suffered a broken left collarbone and a neck ligament damage, being transported into University Medical Center by ambulance. Tony Stewart would finish 21st in a crash-fest Vegas race. Even in 1996 with the original configuration, IndyCar was too dangerous for that track. Race 3, Disney. It was the first IRL race of 1997. Tony Stewart started on the pole. He was looking for redemption after last year's loss. He did just that. He dominated the race by leading 131 laps. After pit stops, he took back the lead on lap 145. Unfortunately, on the next lap, he would ruck out once again.
Well, Tony Stewart, the bright yellow and orange Clinton car. Hawkins, there's the leader. Serious smoke now, and he's pulled down on the pit road. That will give the lead of the race over to the man who just assumed second, which was Tony Stewart. He came around the first plus car of Eddie Cheever and set sights on Hawkins just as Hawkins had a big show of smoke at the back of the car and headed into the pit. Stewart's in trouble. Stewart's in trouble as he slides across the line at the start-finish. It looked like he may have brushed the wall, but he may not have hit it hard. He's got a wheel way down in the back, tire down.
Tire down, right here. He's got that tire down. Well, he's right, just coming off the corner. He loses it right in the middle, so the air was going down. A lot of times the driver can't feel that, but when you put the lateral G-force in the car in the middle of the corner, you can see debris.
Yeah, one small little piece came off there.
You could see a little debris, but boy, that's about as good as you're going to get away with this. Again, turn 1, right in the middle. The thing jumps sideways. Oh yeah, he's bent the wing. The wing touched the wall. It actually tipped it back up. So
Tony Stewart takes the lead and then takes the wall. As they work on the car, get the right side tires in place. We're under our second yellow of the day. In the Indy 200, we go to Gary Gerald.
Once again, Tony Stewart would once again lose his magic, but finished in the top 10. Although his season did not start off well, it was not always doom and gloom. The next 5 races would be strong for smoke. Race 4, Phoenix. Tony Stewart would start on the pole for the second race in a row at Phoenix. Once again, Tony Stewart dominated the race by leading 85 laps. Throughout the race, it was the Tony Stewart and Jim Guthrie show. Guthrie led 74 laps. However, Tony Stewart would have to settle for second while Jim Guthrie won the race. How did Tony lose? Well, after Kenny Brack's crash, Tony Stewart pitted for splash of fuel and some tire pressure changes just before the lap 155 restart, and quickly passed Marco Greco, who had also pitted, but he faced a crowded traffic situation afterwards as his rhythm was not a match for Guthrie. Guthrie would lead the last 46 laps of the race while Tony Stewart had to watch Guthrie take the victory. After the duel in the desert, it was time for the RRL to come back home again in Indiana. Race 5, the 1997 Indianapolis 500. After a tough loss in last year's race, he was looking for redemption. His month of May was not like last year. He was only fastest in practice on May 16th and Carb Day on May 22nd. Tony Stewart started in second. That was the second year row starting in the first row. Unfortunately, on race day, Mother Nature did not want to see any racing on Sunday. Therefore, the race was postponed the next day, on Memorial Day. Thankfully, the race went underway the next day. After disastrous pace laps, twice, the race was finally underway. Tony Stewart passed Arie Luyendyk for the lead and turned forward to lead the first lap. There was some bit of controversy when it came to Arie. Team Menard would later register an official complaint over Luyendyk's start, after Stewart argued that Luyendyk had tried to crowd him towards the outside wall. Caution came out in lap 15 due to rain. Unfortunately, the race was postponed once again to the next day. Once again, Tony Stewart dominated the race by leading 64 laps. Unfortunately, Tony Stewart would lose the lead after pit stops over past halfway. After he had his pit stop, Tony would never lead another lap. After the caution came out for Steve Kinser's crash with 11 laps to go, Tony Stewart pitted for 2 gallons of gas. As he crossed the start-finish line to complete lap 198, Tony Stewart brushed the wall in turn 4, bending the right front suspension. Although Stewart had continued and the car was not seriously damaged, despite brushing the wall, Tony Stewart would finish 5th at the 97 Indy 500. Race 6, Texas. This was the very first ever IndyCar race at Texas Motor Speedway in Fort Worth, Texas. For the 3rd time this year, Tony Stewart would win the pole for the race. I am literally a broken record, but Tony Stewart would dominate the race by leading 100 of the scheduled 208 laps. On lap 190, Stewart in traffic handed the lead to Arie Luyendyk by waving him, thinking the Dutch driver was lapped down. Tony Stewart thus was scored as the leader in the final laps and appeared to have nearly a 1-lap lead over Billy Boat. However, as he crossed the line with 2 laps to go, the engine blew. His car spun in turn 1 and crashed into the outside wall. Billy Boat caught up appeared to take the lead, and due to scoring error, race officials showed him the checker flag as the winner of the inaugural Texas race. The race was famous for A.J. Foyt's slapping race winner, Arie Luyendyk, after Arie badmouthed him during the controversial ending of the race victory lane. Despite all that, Tony Stewart would finish 5th, despite having engine issues, and despite losing a bunch of races, but finishing the top 5 3 times and finishing the top 10 4 times after Texas, Tony Stewart would be 2nd in points, leaving Texas and coming into Pike's Peak. Race 7, Pike's Peak. As expected, Tony Stewart would continue to dominate the race like he has been throughout the entire season, except Las Vegas. What he needs to do is to close the deal and finally get that first ever IndyCar win and also take over the point lead and fight for the championship. But right now, he is focusing on Pike's Peak. Tony Stewart will start in 2nd place, while Scott Sharp started in 2nd. In the turn of events, Scott Sharp would crash out of the race.
So the front row, Sharp, Stewart, Green's out, and we're running. Clean into turn 1 as Start makes a Sharp in trouble. Sharp gets up against the wall right on the first turn as Stewart rolled past. So off of turn 2, Scott Sharp backs it into the wall. And of course, we are yellow.
Tony Stewart dominated almost the entire race by leading 193 of 200 laps. But finally, after all the races he lost, it finally happened.
Oh, Davey Hamilton.
Cheever comes down the inside Gregoire, and Hamilton inside. Cheever, Hamilton comes into 3rd. Gregoire holds on to 2nd.
Another great restart by Davey Hamilton. Another position. It's really hard to get positions on these miles, and he's done it twice in 3 starts.
All that modified racing paint on for Davey Hamilton. Gregoire holds on to 2nd behind Stewart. White flag, 1 to go now. Pitts running
monkey on your back. It's gone. That sucker's in a zoo now, guys. He's in a zoo. How good was this race car all day, Tony? I tell you what, the first run it wasn't the best, but throughout the rest of the race,
Tony Stewart being interviewed by Jack Arute as he waves at the crowd and comes around acknowledging the checkered flag.
After all the heartbreaks, Tony Stewart would finally dominate and win an IndyCar race. Tony Stewart would win the IndyCar race at Pikes Peak. After the win, he would be second in points, 5 points behind Davey Hamilton. With just 3 races to go, the championship battle was on between Tony Stewart and Davey Hamilton. Three more races to go: Charlotte, New Hampshire, and Las Vegas. 2 drivers, Tony Stewart and Davey Hamilton. The championship was heating up. Both drivers were fighting to be the best to win the title. Both drivers had to stay consistent, keep their nose clean, and continue to collect as much points as possible to finish ahead of one another. The next race was at Charlotte Motor Speedway, NASCAR's backyard. Tony Stewart would start on the pole. Davey Hamilton would start in 4th. Tony Stewart would dominate the race by leading 74 laps, but his car suffered handling problems after a pit stop on lap 75. He would finish 7th. As for Davey Hamilton, well...
One of the neat facets of this series is the way it's making new stars in major American racing. Fellas like Jimmy Kite, Billy Boat, Jim Guthrie, the Phoenix winner, who's now on pit.
Whoa, big crash. That's Guerrero and Davey Hamilton. Oh, boy.
Turn 2. A third car is in it.
Oh, no. That's Eliseo Salazar. Oh, boy.
Salazar took the low road to try to miss.
And they just came down right in front of him. Looks like left side of Davey's car, the orange and white car there, is pretty severely hurt.
That was the leader and the 6th place car.
They're both moving around. Seems like everything's okay.
And the left side is just ripped.
Boy, you can just see the whole
car.
suspension is gone.
You see that Guerrero is trying to lap Davey Hamilton here.
He drafted up on him, pulled down to the inside. I don't think Davey felt the, oh boy, you can just see Roberto actually pushed up. I don't think that was Davey's fault. Davey, there's probably enough room for Roberto on the bottom, but he just slid right up and slid right into the side pod of Davey Hamilton.
And watch Hamilton's rear wheel, and that axle shaft went rolling right up Guerrero's car, up and over the top of Guerrero's helmet.
And really, Eliseo has no point. I mean, all the debris up top, he had to go to the bottom. Look, he's trying to get everything slowed down. Really nowhere else he could have gone. He just got collected. What a shame.
Yeah, he couldn't run up top because that's where all those wheels and tires were. What did Guerrero see?
Well, at this point in time, Roberto knows he's not really quite there. And now to start sliding up there, yeah, oh boy. I'm surprised Roberto didn't lift out of it just a little bit earlier. When you're going that fast and you start sliding the bank with the littlest of contact, can really create some trouble.
We're under caution here at Charlotte Motor Speedway for a crash involving leader Roberto Guerrero. We'll be right back.
Davey Hamilton would finish in 16th. After the race, Tony would hold on to the points lead by 7 points ahead of Davey Hamilton. Race 9, New Hampshire. 2 races to go. Davey Hamilton started in 12th. Tony Stewart started in 14th. In shocking turn of events, both Davey and Tony suffered engine issues. Tony Stewart would finish in 14th and Davey Hamilton would finish in 17th. Despite both having issues, Tony Stewart was 10 points ahead of Davey Hamilton, coming into the season finale at Las Vegas. Race 10, Las Vegas, the 1997 Indy Racing League. Season finale is here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, the race where the championship is decided. Tony Stewart versus Davey Hamilton. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Davey Hamilton started in 2nd, and Tony Stewart started in 3rd place. Tony Stewart did not need any laps, but Davey Hamilton only led 1 lap. Despite the race being memorable for Robert Guerrero's terrifying flip at the backstretch, the race was almost ending. Then the checkered flag came out, and a champion was crowned.
While the leader gets the white flag, here goes Eliseo Salazar. His final lap, his final mile and a half. Goodyear comes to 2nd, Gerald to 3rd, Dismore still losing ground. The final race of the year. Eliseo Salazar becomes a new winner in the IRL. And
season, while Tony Stewart takes the championship. Andy Evans, boy, they're happy about that. They've got to be celebrating down in the Menard pits as well with Tony Stewart as the champion.
Tony Stewart, have you ever worked harder to win a championship than in this race tonight?
Oh, man, I tell you what, I've never felt like a monkey on a football so long in my life. The car pushed all night, and, I think we had a shock that must have went away or something, because no matter what, we couldn't do it.
How about it?
You're sweating an awful lot now, baby.
I got a cold bath.
Better you than me.
Oh.
Yes.
Tell me about it. Tell me about the vibration in the tires and one thing or another and all the little gremlins that kept showing up.
There was once fairly early in the race that I was just trying to be a nice guy and make sure that I stayed out away from traffic. And
this has got to be the best championship of all those you've won by far. Agree?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the thing that's most gratifying about this is all these guys with Team Menard. I mean, everyone with Glidden and Quaker State and John Menard, Larry Curry, Bill Martin, John O'Gara, all the guys at the shop. I mean, these guys are the ones that gave me the race cars all year to do what I've done, and I'm the one that gets the spotlight on it, but these guys are the ones that deserve this championship.
He didn't dominate tonight, but he's won a championship.
Davey Hamilton finished in 7th and Tony Stewart finished in 11th. Tony Stewart was the 1997 Indy Racing League champion. He won the championship by 6 points ahead of Davey Hamilton. Now, it was on to 1998. Coming into the season, Tony Stewart was looking to defend his championship and going back to back. It started off that way with a pole and a win at Disney by leading 132 laps. The next race at Phoenix, he started in second, led 127 laps, and finished where he started. Race 3, the 1998 Indianapolis 500. It was back home again in Indiana for Smoke. In the past 2 Indy 500s, Tony Stewart has been the best driver at the Brickyard, but has never closed the deal. So he was the favorite coming in. It looked promising when Tony was fast in practice on top of the speed charts on the past 4 to 6 days of practice on the first week of practice. Surprisingly, Tony Stewart would not start at the front row. He would start in 4th. However, he was still favored to win and has a fast car to win it all. He led on lap 21. Unfortunately, on the next lap, another heartbreaker.
Well, he actually hasn't been that inconsistent, Paul, but it obviously has some understeer. I didn't notice that on the in-car. We'll watch it as it goes down into the corner. You can see this paw-looking thing in the left front. We got a yellow, Paul. We got a yellow.
Had trouble on the front straightaway, and it's in fact Stewart. Stewart's engine let go.
Unbelievable. Leading the race, no warning, gone.
And look at the anger in the cockpit. Stewart, fortunately, able to drive it to a stop without causing trouble for anybody. No one got against the wall, including Stewart.
It looked like that steering wheel must have been a little slippery the way it slipped out of his hands, Paul.
Well, Tony Stewart was furious. He threw the steering wheel, still connected to the two-way radio, out of the front of the car, flings down his gloves in anger. Remember, they had concerns about these engines going to qualifying. They had engine trouble. They finally made a decision to back out of their qualifying engines and use one that was detuned a little bit. But in doing that, they said that they were assuring that the race would run well for Team Menard. Now, one half of the team is gone. Tony Stewart waves to his fans.
Sort of an unusual place to pull the thing to a stop. He's down in the groove and he pulls it to the outside. Don't understand that. Maybe we can get some more information on why he stopped it in that position with the blown motor.
Well, let's talk to Larry Curry. Did Tony tell you anything?
No, we had no warning. We was sitting there running the race that we wanted to run. We wanted to sit and run in traffic. He knew what he had. He said, I know enough about this now. He went up, set him up in traffic, took the lead, and then all of a sudden, bang. So no warning on telemetry, nothing.
A litany of engine problems for this team throughout the year, throughout the month. You thought it was limited to your qualifying effort. Now what do you think?
Yeah, well, you know, got another car over here in the race with Robbie Buell, and so we're going to be nervous for a lot more laps now.
Gary Gerald.
In his third attempt, Tony Stewart would once again get rejected from kissing the bricks due to engine issues. Adding insult to injury, he would finish last. Despite having issues at the 500, he still had the point lead coming into Texas. He was 6 points ahead of Jeff Ward. Race 4, Texas. Tony Stewart would start on the pole for the race. He led 57 laps. He was looking for something good to happen to keep the point lead and make up some points after the 500 issues. Once again, he would have issues. This time, it would be a radiator issue on lap 177 after suffering a water leak. He would finish 14th. Fortunately for Tony, Jeff Ward had engine issues. Unfortunately, leaving Texas, Tony Stewart was tied in points with Scott Sharp after Scott Sharp finished 5th. If Tony Stewart wanted to hold on to the point lead and have a far enough lead, he would have to win. On race 5 at Loudon, Tony did just that.
Tony Stewart, Larry Curry, team manager. Team Menard, they've had a lot of success.
White flag, buddy.
But also a lot of races they failed to finish. He's on his last lap.
Now they're buddies. You know, it's amazing when you run up front, they always are buddies.
Yeah.
Up on Calkin.
Stewart sweeps to the inside. Buzz Calkin back straight away. One more car perhaps to pass before the start-finish line. Scott Goodyear has done everything to track him down, but he's run out of laps. Tony Stewart
buddy. Good
wins the Pep Boys 200.
That's your bad self.
Third Pep Boys Indy Racing League victory for Stewart.
And you the man I'm going to see you.
He now leads the IRL standings by 17 points.
After starting in 6th place, Tony Stewart would win his 3rd and final ever IndyCar win at New Hampshire after 93 laps. This would help him in points because he would be 17 points ahead of Scott Sharp, who would finish 3rd. Race 6, Dover. This was the first IndyCar race at the Monster Mile since 1969, but it was the first ever IRL race at Dover. Tony Stewart would start on the pole. He would lead 85 laps and would finish in 8th. You may think that is not that bad, but it was bad for Tony because Scott Sharp would dominate the race by leading 145 laps and would win the brutalized, crash-filled race with bad crashes. Leaving the Monster Mile, Scott Sharp would take the points lead away from Tony Stewart and was 8 points ahead of Smoke. Race 7, Charlotte. Tony Stewart would win the pole for the 2nd race in a row, which would be his last ever pole in the IRL. In the race, Tony did 19 laps. He led 19 laps. Unfortunately, on lap 30, he would have engine issues. He would DNF after 54 laps, but that did not affect him in points because Scott Sharp finished in 18th after crashing on lap 105 with a 98 of Donnie Bilcher. After Charlotte, both drivers were still 8 points apart, so it was championship implications for both drivers. Race 8, Pikes Peak. Tony Stewart would start in P3 while Scott Sharp started in 8th. Tony Stewart would lead 21 laps and finish in 3rd, while Scott Sharp finished in 11th. Scott Sharp would be the points leader, 1 point ahead of race winner Kenny Bragg. Tony would be 3rd in points, 6 points back at the Pikes Peak. So now there was a 3-car fight for the title. Or so we thought. During the next 3 races and the remainder of the season, Kenny Bragg would win 2 in a row at Atlanta, which would continue to help him gain the points lead. Kenny would continue to be the best and the most consistent driver for the remainder of the races and would win the 1998 Indy Racing League Championship. Tony Stewart's race at Atlanta led 12 laps and finished in 5th. In Texas, he would dominate the race by leading 51 laps, but he had engine issues and would finish in 20th. Texas would not only be the last race he led laps, but that race would be the last time he would lead the most laps at an IndyCar race. In the season finale at Las Vegas, Tony Stewart would spin on lap 7. He would finish in 14th. Tony would finish 3rd in points, 43 points back behind the champion, Kenny Bragg. After the 1998 season, Tony Stewart would make his move to NASCAR full-time in the NASCAR Winston Cup Series in 1999. We all know how his NASCAR career turned out. During his time in the IRL, he did 36 NASCAR Busch Series races between 1996 through 1998. It was supposed to be 37, but Stewart failed to qualify at Homestead back in 1995. In 24 starts, Tony Stewart had 3 wins, 7 podiums, 8 poles, and a championship in 1997. Tony Stewart would race in the Indianapolis 500 in 1999. He would finish in 9th place for TriStar Motorsports, not the NASCAR one. His last ever IndyCar race would be the 2001 Indianapolis 500 for Chip Ganassi while doing the Indy 500 Coke 600 double for the 2nd time. He would finish 6th. His average finish in his time in IndyCar would be a 10.1. In 2018, Tony Stewart said that he wanted to race at the Indianapolis 500 and win. Ever since that news came out, there has not been any other news about Tony wanting to race at Indy again. It would be cool to see Tony race an IndyCar again, but I just do not see it happening. As for his IndyCar career, I think it was very successful. He was a contender each race. Although he only won 3 races, he showed that he was a contender to win races. Tony Stewart is not only one of the best race car drivers out there, he had a successful IndyCar career. He is an American class driver that has been racing in different disciplines of race cars. Honestly, I think Tony Stewart's IndyCar career deserves to get looked at more. Despite the split almost killing American open wheel racing, Tony Stewart said the split created an opportunity to race an IndyCar in Indianapolis. Even Tony George, ironically the one who caused the split, said that he was a star from the very first race. Tony George also added that it was great that Team NARL gave an opportunity, and it would have been nicer if the opportunity for him to stay in the sport much longer. But is still happy for Tony's racing career. While promoting the 2016 Brickyard 400 in his NASCAR Farewell Tour, a dirt track was built in his honor in Turn 3. Tony Stewart, Brian Clausen, and Sarah Fisher were the first drivers to be on the IMS dirt. It's still cool that there's a dirt track at IMS, and they do a race honoring Brian Clausen. Wow, that was a lot of hard work to make this episode. If you guys made it this far, I really appreciate you guys for sticking around this episode. If I have gotten stuff wrong or missed any other information, please feel free to tell me in the comments below. A lot of help would be appreciated. I want to say thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Racing Stories. Comment, like, and subscribe for more motorsports content on this channel and for more episodes of Racing Stories, and turn on my YouTube notifications. Thank you guys so much for supporting this channel and joining the E Nation Army. This is the Impressive 48, signing off. Goodbye, everybody.